Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Thank you. And welcome to our special annual Seafair program. I'm Cindy Runger, president of Seattle Rotary. And wasn't this outstanding coming in and hearing from the Navy Band? Yes. Yes. Thank you. So today we're going to have a very lively program. We will introduce our visiting dignitaries, hear an update from Consul General Yamada on the devastating floods in Japan, get a peek into what's new with Seafair this year, and then hear from our women in the military. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge our greeters, Conrad Waters, Nathan Donahue, Jeff Pritchard, and Sarah Weaver, and all of those who serve as greeters. You serve a very important purpose. Yes, yes. So just thanks for showing up early with a nice grin and a handshake. And please be seated for our inspiration from Nancy Cahill.
Stephen Covey wrote a book entitled In the Speed of Trust. In it, he writes that there is one thing common to every individual, relationship, team, family, organization, nation, economy, and civilization throughout the world. One thing, if removed, will destroy the most powerful government, the most successful business, the most thriving economy, the most influential leadership, the greatest friendship, the strongest character, and the deepest love. On the other hand, if developed and leveraged, that one thing has the potential to create unparalleled success and prosperity in every dimension of life. Yet it is the least understood, the most neglected, and most understood and most underestimated possible of all time. That one thing is trust. Trust impacts us 24/7, 365 days a year. It undergirds and affects the quality of every relationship, every work project, every business venture, every effort in which we're engaged. It changes the quality of every present moment and alters the trajectory and outcome of every future moment of our lives. Contrary to what most people believe, trust is not some soft, elusive quality that you either have or you don't. Rather, trust is a pragmatic, tangible, actionable asset that you can create much faster than you probably think possible. While corporate scandals, terrorist threats, politics, broken relationships can impact our trust on all fronts, Covey contends that the ability to establish, grow, and restore trust is not only vital to our personal and interpersonal well-being, it's a key leadership competency of the new global economy. So the reason I shared on this today is I look around and I see our wonderful guests today from many of the service organizations, and I think they embody trust, and the incredible skills that they use on a daily basis are a reflection of them understanding how to trust the men and women that serve next to them, and we are so grateful for that. They've used their leadership skills to protect and support our country and to make the world a better place. So we welcome you here today. We regularly lift you up in our prayers, and we thank you for your service. Thank you.
So now to introduce our short program is our member, Richard Anderson. Richard's been president and CEO of Seafair since 2016. And he comes from us after years of executive positions in sports and entertainment, like the San Diego Padres and Joe Robbie Stadium in Miami. I'm trying to keep a straight face. Okay, Richard, take it away.
Great, thanks, Cindy. Good afternoon, and Jimmy, thanks for the great idea on these shades. Seafair is summer. If you don't have a pair, see our board chair, Michelle Rudd, sitting over there at table 11D70. She's got a box of them, I'm sure. On behalf of Seafair, Seafair is summer. And I do want to take just a moment and introduce a couple of people. There are many people in this room that either have served on the Seafair board or serve on it now. And because I only had 1 minute and 38 seconds, I'm not going to introduce you all individually, but I'm instead going to ask if you have served as a Seafair board member or serve now, if you would just please stand and be recognized. Thank you. I mentioned our board chair sitting in the middle, Michelle Rudd, also. We have roughly 75 events that we support, about a dozen that we put on from soup to nuts. We were formed 69 years ago. by a group of folks just like yourself that wanted to make a difference in Seattle. We simply are about bringing diverse communities together, making memories, and creating affordable fun. Every event we do, you can come to for free. But what you don't know, probably, is that we don't take any public funding. We are supported by volunteers. We raise all the monies ourselves from many of you great corporate partners and individuals in this room. And it's all about making a difference. Most of us chase success and at some point realize we want to make a difference, and that's why we joined Rotary. And that's what Seafair is really about, making a difference in the quality of life in our community. We are proud to link arms with this great city, and we serve really, even though we don't take public funding, we actually pay almost $500,000 a year in city fees to put on the events we put on. We do this with great joy, working with our city partners to make sure that great things are going on in our community for all walks of life, young and old, from all different sectors. So the greatest part of my job as CEO is to do two things. One is to acknowledge great people, and so without going into the last piece of this program, I do want to point out, I don't know if Beth Wojak is here, but I do want to point out my predecessor, Beth Knox, is here, and she's a member of the club. Let's give her a round of applause. Without her, Seafair would not have survived. Beth, you're the best. Thank you. And secondly, as all of you know that have ever been in any senior executive role, and certainly those of you that serve in our military, and thank you for that service, the person in my role, the only real job we have is to make sure we surround ourselves with really talented people and then make sure they have what they need to get the job done. I'm blessed that a few years ago I gave Adam Cook the Richard Anderson handshake and got him to come here. He's an incredibly talented young man. He's run large arenas throughout the country. He actually helped, prior to that, open the Everett Comcast Event Center, so he's very well known in the area. He wanted to live in Seattle, and Seafair was the place. So without further ado, it's my great pleasure to introduce one of my favorite Seafair people of all the time, and the guy that really makes it happen, who's going to give you a quick overview, Adam Cook, our Vice President of Business Operations. Adam?
Thank you very much, Richard. And thank you, everybody, very much for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes, especially Cindy, Ken, Jimmy, for having us here. We greatly appreciate getting a chance to share everything about Seafair with you and what's coming up. But if you haven't seen Seafair before, we got just a quick taste so you can get a sense of what we're really all about for Seafair Weekend. And there we go. Truly is a great weekend out on Lake Washington. If you've never been, I highly encourage you to come out. A few of the big things we're talking about, well, we're about relevance, experience, and driving new this year. Our content is our first step with that. We're really focusing on the hydroplane and the air show, but driving new components. So the first up is our junior hydro races. We're gonna have kids out there ages 9 to 16 driving boats that are handmade at the Hydroplane and Raceboat Museum up to 35 to 40 miles an hour across a 1-mile course on Lake Washington. This is gonna be fantastic, highly recommend it. As well, our Milk Carton Derby, we actually just wrapped it up a few weeks ago in Green Lake, but we're bringing a component out to Seafair Weekend, and some of those top boats are gonna be racing across Lake Washington. If you've never seen a boat that's solely powered by people themselves and made entirely out of milk cartons, I highly recommend trying it. Those are not gonna be in our Navy fleet next year, I promise. We're also about the full experience at Seafair. It's not just the content for us. It is about our operations across the board, so our food is a big focus this year. We have some of the best food coming in and vendors from the local region as well as across the country. If you have never tried C. Davis Texas barbecue, you've got to try this. It is the best barbecue I've eaten in my life. And I've lived down in Miami with Richard for a while there, so it is fantastic. Diverse foods, all palates, will please everybody. Our TV and radio broadcast is back as a new component this year with a new partner. King 5 has come on board to partner with us and help us air live broadcast From 3 to 6 on Sunday, you will see live racing action, live air show action. There will be fantastic clips from the weekend, highlights from everything we've done. But the new component this year is we're not just localized into the Seattle market. We are going broad across Eastern Washington, Montana, and Idaho with a partnership with SWX and NBC right now. They're going to be taking us statewide. They are helping us produce the content as well. We're also going to be live on Kixie Radio, AM 880. And then new this year, Mercer Island High School has a radio station, 88.9 The Bridge, is going to become 88.9 The Boom for Seafair Weekend. So all our guests who are out on the log boom will be able to enjoy all the action. On top of that, everything we do, everything we drive is not possible without the great partners that support us. We have several, Boeing and Albert Lee, top on the list, who have been partners for quite a long time with us. They help us make it possible, but several new ones this year. We're with Safeway, has expanded their partnership. Swire Coca-Cola is on board. Capital One has come on board as a new partner. Oberto has returned for us, and Miller Coors. It is only with the great support of all of these organizations and everybody you see on the screen that we can really deliver Seafair's mission. And that's pretty simple. We are about two things, as Richard said. We are about community and bringing everybody together, and we are about creating memories. As an entirely self-funded nonprofit, everything we do goes back to scholarships, ambassador programs, community events, holiday cruises for the developmentally disabled, all of those pieces. We do not take a dime outside of supporting our other mission. And we're about making memories for generations to come for everybody. So with that, I thank you for my time. I'm going to bring Richard back up. We have a special presentation. Yep.
First, I want to introduce Ms. Seafair, a senior at the University of Washington, UW, Zoraida Valdivinos. We're extremely proud to have her representing Seafair. Let's give her a big round of applause. And Cindy, we're going to ask you to come forward, President Cindy, and we have a very special proclamation that Zoraida is going to read on your behalf.
Cindy L. Runger, you personify the term go-getter. Excelling at everything you do, it is quite extraordinary looking back at all of your accomplishments. Doing track, debate club, and honor society in high school, graduating at the top of your high school class, being voted most likely to succeed, elected student body president at Gonzaga, earning a full ride to Gonzaga School of Law. I mean, come on. Your accomplishments don't stop there. For the Rotary Club, you have served as a club board member, a vice president of membership, president of the Seattle Rotary Service Foundation, and last but not least, 110th president of the Rotary Club of Seattle. I could keep going, but I know people don't want to be here all night. Honestly, Cindy, we are just in so awe of all of your hard work and all you do for your community. You are a shining example of a public servant, and we are eternally grateful for everything you have contributed to your Seattle family. I, Miss Seafair, Zoraida Valdivinos, on behalf of King Neptune and Queen Alcyone, as a token of our greatest esteem for you and in recognition of your ability to do honor to the illustrious position, do hereby appoint you a Seafair Royal. Cindy L. Runger, will you please come forward for the royal knighting and kneel before me?
Careful, careful.
If I could see the paper, please. Sorry. I hereby declare you governess of go-getters and do-gooders. Now go forth and spread the Seafair message with good cheer and community spirit throughout the Puget Sound. Congratulations. And then there's
Well, that was fun. Thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate it. Okay, so now for our main program. Past President Bill Center will introduce our main program. And you know, like so many distinguished members in our club, he's just Bill. He's just a good guy, really approachable, right? So you forget that he's a big deal. Yeah, Bill the big deal. So, retired from the U.S. Navy as Rear Admiral, commanded 3 ships in his naval career, served as senior advisor to the Joint Chiefs of Staff on arms control, non-proliferation, environmental matters, and international agreements, was General Colin Powell's deputy director for international negotiations, and just one of the nicest guys you could meet. Past President Bill Center.
She used up a minute of our precious time. I can't do one of these Seafair programs without thinking about Tom Jaffa. He tirelessly dedicated himself to this program for more than a decade. As many of you know, he suffered a catastrophic stroke more than a year ago. He and Diane have relocated to Florida, and Tom's in an assisted living facility down there. And he still can't move his right side or speak. You have to know how frustrating that is for him. If you'd like to send him a note, Jeff Davis, our Navy League president, is going to get the address, and it'll be available from the Rotary office. So on with the program. I'm going to sit down here because it's all about the folks up on the stage. Our all-volunteer force, launched in 1973, succeeded far beyond the expectations of even the most optimistic proponents. We've also suffered unintended consequences, including a growing separation between the military and civilian cultures. You'd think the military folks would understand civilians. After all, we all start out that way. But things change quickly these days, and speaking candidly, most career military professionals who served a decade or more would confess they no longer really understand civilians. It's even tougher for the civilians. Less than 1% of our population will ever serve. Fewer and fewer have a friend or relative now on active duty. Books and movies don't do much to bridge the divide. It's not a good thing. We need to understand each other for the health of our republic, if for no other reason. From my vantage point, one of the biggest gaps is in civilian understanding of the important role of women in the American military and what it's like to serve as a woman. 16% of our enlisted force today is made up of women. 18% of the officer corps are women. We have only a few minutes. We hope to get you thinking about this. We'll do our best to be fast and honest and leave some time for questions from you. Whitney Mason, raise your hand, Whitney, for those who don't know you, was born and raised in Seattle, graduated from Queen Anne High School and Northwestern University. After commissioning as a Marine Corps second lieutenant and completing the basic school, she served as a logistics officer, did a tour at Parris Island, training recruits, and then served as a public affairs officer. She completed 4 overseas deployments before transitioning to the Marine Corps Reserve in 1999. She returned to Seattle in 2003 for her reserve assignment with the Marine for Life program, and then served as a reserve support officer for the Seattle area recruiting. She joined our club in 2004. She retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2015 and is currently a residential real estate broker with Caldwell Banker Bain. Her family include her mother, who lives locally, and her beau, and several dogs, and a cat. Lieutenant Commander Laura Gallicero, you could probably tell she's the one in white, was born in Aurora, Colorado. She graduated from Arizona State University in 1999, launched her career as a naval flight officer the following year. She made 5 aircraft carrier deployments, flying the EA-6B Prowler, including deployments to a number of high-threat environments. She's also filled important staff assignments as an electronic warfare officer. She's currently serving as Commander, Workforce Development here in Navy Region Northwest, where she manages over 300 employees, focusing on professional and leadership developments and compliance with federal and local regulations, policies, and procedures. She's the proud mother of a 5-year-old son planning to retire from the Navy and settle on Whidbey Island upon completion of her current assignment. Dianca Lanier was raised in Seattle. She graduated from the University of Washington in 1996. She joined the Army as an enlisted soldier. And then, via Army ROTC, excuse me, she became an officer. She rose to the rank of captain and left the service in 2007 to pursue a career as a civilian attorney. Dianca served 16 years as a logistics officer, a JAG officer, and is airborne qualified. She's currently the Vice President, General Counsel, and Corporate Secretary for fast-growing tech company Convoy. She joined our club in 2013 and has served as VP for membership and a board member. Dianca is the mom of 2 highly motivated, trilingual daughters, ages 8 and 11. That doesn't take any time, does it? And finally, from the United States Air Force, if I can turn the paper over, I know her name. It's Amanda Robillard, Captain Amanda Robillard, United States Air Force, was raised in Bristol, Connecticut. She graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2011 and graduated from undergraduate pilot training in 2012. She's been qualified as a C-17 pilot since 2013 and has done numerous deployments as a C-17 instructor pilot. Amanda is also part of the Prime Nuclear Airlift Force at McCord Field. She's one of only 8 airmen in the Department of Defense trusted with the custody and security for transport of nuclear weapons. That's pretty impressive, but pay attention to this. Amanda has 3 sisters. All 3 of them also went to the Air Force Academy. All 3 of them are also serving as officers in the Air Force. One of them is her identical twin sister who also flies C-17s out of Joint Base Lewis McChord. Another is an HH-60 instructor pilot serving at Kirtland Air Force Base down in Albuquerque. And the third, foreign affairs officer currently serving overseas in Africa. So thank you to your mom and dad for trusting you to our great nation. So I'm going to try to keep the focus on them and not on me. I'm going to throw out the question or two. First question, starting with Whitney. Why did you join the military?
Well, the short version is I had a degree in journalism, and I felt like I needed to go experience the world before I wrote about it. I was very interested in serving my country, and I had an interest in history and the military, and many seeds were planted over time, and one day I walked into the recruiter's office and said, what do I need to do to become a Marine officer?
As for myself, I watched, like most people in my generation, Top Gun. And I knew I had to be in the Navy to fly off of aircraft carriers. And I was interested in also being an astronaut. So the easiest way in getting into astronauts is actually through the Navy, more for the Air Force. So that's why I chose a Navy career path. And then along the way, I decided just to stay Navy.
And I probably had a very odd way I joined. I was actually in college on the East Coast and realized I was a little short on money. So I saw a poster that said, $30,000, join the Army. I didn't know they yelled at people in the military. So I joined the military, and 16 years later was the best decision I ever made. And they do yell at people. They did, at least when I was going through basic.
I think Air Force, Army, we don't really yell as much. And for myself, Bill, you said it very clearly. I'm the youngest of 4 sisters, and my oldest sister kind of paved the way, went to the Air Force Academy. I didn't know what it was at the time. I was in middle school at the time, and she basically came back and just had raving reviews about it. And I just always kind of wanted to be bigger than myself, get out of my small town, so it worked.
Great. So, Dianca, you alluded to the fact that the Army wasn't all you expected it to be. What was your experience like compared to what you thought it would be like?
I thought it would be incredibly rigid, honestly, and limiting in terms of career opportunities. I was wrong in every sense. Like you said, I had a chance to get, in addition to the other training I had an opportunity to become proficient and qualified in language schools. I was a civil affairs officer. Just the breadth of opportunities in the military is what surprised me the most. And the fact that when I transferred over to the reserve, I was able to also maintain a civilian career, which helped me sort of transition, I think, a little easier into the civilian world.
Terrific. So, Laura, was the Navy anything like Top Gun?
No volleyball, unfortunately.
No shirtless volleyball.
Shirtless volleyball, right. It was very similar in that I knew going in the expectations. It's very clear in the Navy what is expected of you. I mean, you go to school, you're expected to be top percentage of your class if you want to get what you want to get. So it was very what I expected. There were elements of what I didn't expect. Is it's very difficult to not be able to choose your next assignment. I thought there was a little bit more of that involved in the military. After 19 years now, I realize often you have a choice, but it comes with consequences. Good and bad, what you choose. So that would be the only thing that I didn't expect, is I thought there'd be a little bit more choice of where you went at some point in your career, and it really isn't that way in my experience.
Whitney, your experience goes back the farthest of the panel members. What have been the most significant changes for women serving in the military? And for all of you, what changes would you like to see? What are the biggest challenges that still face women? So what has changed? What needs changing?
You know, that may be a better question for the younger panelists. I think that with each generation, a baton is passed, and I think each generation opens a door for the next generation. And you know, I joined a service to serve my country and be part of something important, and I was allowed that opportunity. And I never felt that there were necessarily barriers. I knew that there were congressional decisions that might have prevented me from doing something, but I was allowed so many opportunities, and I could see that as we were progressing, more doors were opening. So I always felt that that was happening, if that answers the question.
So younger members of the panel, what still needs changing?
I'm not the one that I'm sure I'm the
You
older
qualify,
member.
Dianca, that's okay.
I honestly don't, but I will tell you that when I joined you, women couldn't be rangers. I understand that's changed now, so that's some great progress. It wasn't an option that I had. I could be airborne, but I couldn't be an airborne ranger. And so I think that's great. I do still think, though, there needs to be opportunities for women. I think men need to be in the military, should be better allies for women. I have a good friend who is just promoted to full bird colonel over the last week. And she says that, you know, the reality is, though, we still need to have allies of our male officers bringing us in and ensuring that we get the training that we needed to make the connections that we need to be promoted.
What about you, Amanda? Are you being supported?
I am. I have never found a door that I cannot walk through, basically. And I've been in limited time compared to all the other ladies up here. I've only been in 7.5 years. But with that, I have, let's see, the men probably push me to basically make rank or take higher positions more than they might push other people, if anything. So I feel like I have more experiences or more opportunities as a female, and I have never found a door that I could not walk through. So I've felt very lucky and humbled. And I do agree the men taking our side and kind of being on our team, but like any military and military unit, it's like a family. And I think that's what I found is anytime I go travel overseas with other men in my unit, they take care of me just like I take care of them. So they don't treat me any different, and I appreciate that.
So Dianca and Whitney, what do you see as the biggest differences for women in the civilian workforce versus women in the military? Start with you, Whitney.
Well, I felt very much part of a team from the get-go in the Marine Corps. The camaraderie, the expectations, you're expected to do your job, you do your job, you're part of the team. It's very simple. You're in a culture that may potentially be more intense, more aggressive, but you know, you do your job. And I guess the simplicity and the camaraderie, in some ways, I think make life easier. I'm not so sure it's as easy in the civilian life, quite frankly. You know, we kind of speak the same language. You make it through OCS, you make it through your training, there's a certain level of acceptance. So you know, in some ways, civilian life is, I think, probably a little more challenging.
Dianca?
I think I'm just going to agree with what Whitney said.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I know one of the things in the military, you look at somebody like Laura there, and you can read her history right there on those ribbons. And, you know, talking about trust, as Nancy did, you know, you see, we trust each other. So what do you want to do when you retire from the military, Laura?
Well, it was funny you said the issue about trust was, as a naval flight officer, I don't actually have controls of the aircraft landing on a carrier at night. But my pilot might be brand new, and this might only be his, 7th or 8th time landing, or his very first time ever seeing, well, other than when he winged, but in this type of aircraft, going out to an aircraft carrier. So I'm looking for a job that I don't have that much fear. I'm okay with the level of trust, but that level of fear when I retire next year. We have a great program in the military. It's called Skill Bridge, and it's a fellowship internship while you're still on active duty. So if you're within 180 days of retiring, or some other caveats, you can work with Fortune 500 companies, local businesses, and internship basically free to that company because you're still being paid as active duty, and you can do an internship with, say, Boeing, Starbucks, get corporate knowledge of that, and typically at the end of that internship you are offered a position. So that's currently what I'm looking at. You can't really apply until a year from retirement, so I'm a little bit more than 1 year, but that's what I'm looking at, is doing an internship type job in the Pacific Northwest, because I will be here in the Whidbey area.
Yeah, Amanda, you're a long ways away. You might be the chairman of the Joint Chiefs by the time you retire. So have you thought anything about that?
Well, I have 3.5 years left. We have a 10-year commitment for pilot training in the Air Force, and that'll put me at about 11 and a half years in, and so I'll probably push to my 20-year mark, and if not, then probably join the reserves to make it to then and continue serving in some capacity.
Well, I have a whole list of questions, and we're running short on time. I'm going to do 2 of them real quick, rapid fire. I never encouraged my 2 sons to attend the Naval Academy or join the Navy, but I have no hesitation about pushing my 13-year-old granddaughters to go to the Naval Academy and join the Navy. Would you encourage young women to join the military? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay. That's, of course, assuming they're qualified and motivated. Now, we've heard a great deal about the issue of sexual harassment and sexual assault in the military, and lately, of course, we've discovered, lo and behold, it's a problem everywhere. So, question. I'll start with the 2 ladies currently on active duty. Is the military actually making any progress on this issue? Laura?
I would say we are making progress. I'm not sure how it is in the civilian organizations, but in the military, we have so many pathways, whether you want it to be what we call open reporting or closed reporting. If you want to just make some type of report that, hey, this incident particularly happened, I'm telling you so we can put a stop to it, as opposed to I'm reporting this so that action can be taken, it can be put out in the media, that type. So I would say yes, we absolutely are doing something about it, and I believe it's in the
Good. This is
right
the last
direction.
thing, Dianca. You're a lawyer. What do you think about this?
I think the military did a great job for me. I also, though, having been an enlisted soldier and an officer, want to be respectful. I think some of those experiences might be different, right, with different power dynamics. So I don't feel like I have great insight. I was only enlisted for a few years.
Okay.
So,
John Steckler, questions from the audience.
All right, who's got a question out there? Come on, raise your, oh, sure, the guy in the back of the room. Thanks a lot, Kraft. Hey. Does everybody know Don Kraft was here today? Just want to make sure he got his attendance record in.
Thanks, John. I'd just like to say it's been wonderful having Whitney in our club for quite a few years now, and it's really fun to sit at the same table with a guest or a newbie and said, you know that girl over there is a lieutenant colonel in the Marines? I heard you say Rangers coming. I didn't hear that any of you had combat in your background. I heard takeoffs and landings, and I know you all do important jobs that used to be done by men and that are very important now. What do you think of combat?
So I participated in, I'll use the acronyms. If you don't know them, we can talk at the end. OIF, OEF, and OND, all 3 of those operations from an aircraft carrier. So I'm sure like my fellow brothers and sisters that served, it was intense. I was 21 years old at the time, my first time, going into combat ops. Actually, I was 22. Fast, fire hose, intense. I did keep a journal because I knew I would have children one day, so I kept a weekly journal to be able to read that back to my son. And I go back and I look at it, and it was absolutely everything that the Navy trained me for.
And you're combat qualified too, right, Amanda?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Luckily, obviously, I've never been on the ground, but we fly into, we call them FOBs, they're forward operating bases, kind of in the middle of nowhere in Iraq and Syria, land on dirt strips. And I would absolutely agree. The Air Force has prepared me in every way, and I don't think that I'm any more fearful than my male counterparts, and kind of vice versa. I think we're prepared for what we're going into because we have to be.
John Bridge is dying to ask one more question.
Just wanted to talk a little bit about the family situation that you end up in the military, and the fact that the vast majority of women in the military who are married are actually married to other active duty service members. So how do you balance this? And especially when you have children, how do you balance the dealings with between father and mother in the military?
So I'll go ahead and take that. So I have a 5-year-old son. He is the son from a previous marriage, and at the time we both were active duty. The nice thing is they typically try to get one of you on shore duty and one of you on sea duty. In our situation, by the time the child was, a year and a half old, we were already separated. So it pretty much ended up being a single parent for about 3 years. And it is very, very difficult. But there is an old saying, and I say that because it's an old saying, it's not just military, it takes a village. So I did deploy. I've done a 7-month deployment as a single parent, and I flew my parents down. They lived in my house, and they watched my child for the entire deployment. I was very lucky to have a family that could do that. Since then, I'm now dating another active duty, and we are waiting until I retire because it's a lot easier to handle co-locations and orders and things like that. You make it work. I don't think it's any different than in the corporations. If you have to travel or you have to go somewhere or an event happens and you have to cover down, speaking with Amazon, I'm pretty sure anybody that works for Amazon never sees their family from Thanksgiving to February, right? You handle it. So it definitely just takes a village, but that's how I would respond.
Ladies, you've inspired Miss Seafair to ask a question of you.
First of all, thank you for your service. My question, I guess, would be how do you suggest that we encourage more young women to enlist in the military? Because I think it can be a little bit intimidating, choosing a career that's predominantly males.
Well, I think it's important to understand that the military, whichever branch, offers tremendous leadership opportunities for women, which can then be applied to your personal life, your professional life, post-military. So it's training for life. And you'll go places and you'll meet people, you'll serve with people that you would otherwise never have an opportunity to be with. And I will say that in terms of leadership training, in my experience in the Marine Corps, we were taught leadership traits and principles. We were afforded many opportunities to practice those. But interestingly enough, and this would maybe be my one surprise in choosing to serve in the Marine Corps, was that I was really encouraged to be my authentic self. Now, that's a civilian term, not a Marine Corps term. But I was given the opportunity to be the leader that I was intended to be, not like somebody else. So I might not walk into a room and throw a chair and beat on my chest. That would not have been me. But I was encouraged to be me. And those skills have been applied since. So it opens a world to you that you then take and enjoy and
That's
move forward
great.
with.
Really quick.
But there's more.
Fun. I know, there's a lot more. So would you, based on your own experience, agree or disagree with the premise that most civilians don't really understand what it's like to be a woman in the military? Is that mostly true or mostly not true? You having to think about it. Just thumbs up or thumbs down or thumbs sideways. Okay. One up, one down, one sideways, one no vote. Okay, well, that's it. Give them a round of applause.
So in closing, I chose this quote from John Quincy Adams on leadership in honor of our inspirational leaders today. If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Thanks, everybody. See you next time.